I mean, we might as well just talk about the Star World Cup again because, it's not like we haven't been talking about it for 16 or 17 weeks.
Yeah. Dude, I feel like I did
nothing. Done with this?
Well, I feel like I did nothing but talk about it leading up to it. And then after it passed, I feel like I'm still doing nothing but talking about it. But
what I
we had
think
a lot
is
of
cool,
surprises in store that we couldn't talk about before.
Right. And people are like, well, how are you going to top this? So, if you were there, you'll know what we're talking about. If you didn't, check the replay. But we start with the video. And then the arena goes to black. And then voila, the ODU marching band comes out. They play a couple numbers. People were like, I'd never seen so many phones out. That I think you had seen it.
That was pretty special.
And then they go off.
That it hit right.
Tim and I. Well, so from where I was wondering if I did, but then I got a video from James yesterday from his vantage point, and it hit perfectly. And I was like, oh yeah, I got the chills.
I look forward to seeing that. And that's the whole thing that's tough too, is trying to process all of the video and pictures, and there's a lot of stuff that's still coming in that we have to get out.
Yeah. Then we go on stage, do a little Mr. Brightside. There was a delivery made in the middle of it. That was pretty ridiculous. Then the world famous Riptide shows up, does a little stumble, first pitch, caught.
That was interesting within itself. Also, because wanted to make it so we were like the whole time in the reception beforehand. I'm looking. My wife is looking. We're trying to find kids out there in the crowd because we wanted to be able to bring a child up to receive that first pitch. So that
you did find them. We did, but you didn't tell me who they were. So I'm looking for them. Then you leave, and I'm like,
oh yeah, because I had to run off stage to go find the baseball glove. Where
was it?
I had it side stage, but
okay.
Even then, I was like, man, there was a lot going on. There was a lot happening.
Yeah. 10 amazing pitches. Then in between some activation, some entertainment. People loved Alexis Perkins, Chair One Fitness. I think you were backstage. I went out in the crowd to watch that. That was absolutely bananas. People were like, whoa, what are we doing?
Yeah, from my vantage point, Juan Pablo was in attendance, who's the Commonwealth of Virginia Secretary of Commerce and Trade. Yeah, he was getting his workout on, which was pretty fun to watch.
No reference, no relation to Tom, by the way, if you guys are wondering. People, I think, like the crunchy drink off too. Pretty well. And then, well, by the way, I have one of these. I've never had one. I'm gonna see what it tastes like. I will have it in a little bit. Then we happen to have our winner on the show today. So we're super excited about that.
That was just pure coincidence, but it worked out really, really well.
Yes, Neal Piper, Luminoah.
Hi, I'm just hydrating here.
That was cute. What was in there? Was it a crunchy?
It was a crunchy. Yeah, I was preparing for the show, making sure I'm hydrated with crunchy today.
So this says stress relief. I'm not stressed at all right now, and if this makes me, it says plus calm. So if I get really mellow, Megan Riggs, I blame you.
Yeah, maybe that can be the new tradition. Instead of like Indy, is it Indy 500 where they drink the milk? We can drink some crunchy in terms of celebration from here on out. But congratulations, Neal.
Thank you. I'm still overwhelmed by the whole experience. It's been a fantastic week, and what an honor it was to be a part of this whole journey with you all.
So we'll talk World Cup, and then we'll go into the business aspect of it, because I think what you're doing is incredibly important. How'd you learn about the event? Obviously, you were named a finalist. What did you expect going into it? Just walk us through kind of the last few months and in regards to the World Cup.
Actually, one of our engineers saw an email from Debbie from Lighthouse Labs promoting the event to, apply, and we applied, and we're really, really honored to be accepted to be a part of the program. And and then met the two of you through this entire experience. And what an incredible day it was. That you never know what to expect when going to these types of events. And I brought my wife with me, and we came in from Charlottesville, Virginia, and we show up in this beautiful auditorium, and realize at that moment this is going to be a very special night.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. For the first time that when Zach and I were scoping places to potentially do this, and it's like, man, a little overwhelming. Outside, you have this big place, then you walk inside, you're like, whoa, this is this is this is big.
Let
See,
the record show. Let the
last
let
week
the
you
record.
did this on purpose, and now I let you run with that.
See, I'm not a regular at this anymore. You take 1 week off. No. Let the record show that when Tim told me, let's do it at the Sandler, I said, you are absolutely crazy, and I do not like that idea. But then we still decided to do it. And it was cool. 742 people in attendance. It was a wild ride.
If you build it, will they come? And they came. People came.
Which is way more than doubled last year.
Yeah. What did you think you won?
No way.
And if not, who did you think won?
I think there were 10 companies that easily could have won. I was questioning whether or not the judges were in the back pulling straws, because every company was fantastic and deserving to win. And, my wife was whispering over, like, I think there's about, 5 or 6 companies that could win this. And it was like, there's no way we're going to win. And then the gentleman from Pegasus comes out with the envelope. Is like the Oscars, right? This big reveal moment. And they mentioned Luminoah, and or said Luminoah is the winner. And I was just completely shocked. And I look over at my wife and I said, am I supposed to go up on stage right now? She's like, yeah, you're supposed to go up on stage. And suddenly I'm there, and Zach and Tim are there, and Zach puts the big, wrestling belt on my shoulder. It weighs like 20 pounds. I'm leaning over like this. I've got a mic and this cup in the other hand, which weighs another 10 pounds. And I remember Zach saying, all right, give some remarks. And I was going to set all this to the side. Like, no, you've got to wear it when you're up there. So I'm now like this, standing. And it was just such an honor. It's an honor of a lifetime to have won. There it is.
I think that
there's
it
the
is
real
amazing
champ.
How heavy that thing is. It is much heavier than one would ever realize.
This belt was given to me as a gift by Xerxes Nabong 10 years ago. I think because I put him on a TV show, this was like him being like, oh, thank you for that. I don't really know if that's the case. I can't recall. But I get this really nice handwritten letter with it. And it says, thanks for always being a champion of businesses. And so while I'm grateful to receive, something that I never would have bought for myself because I think it's way too expensive as an ornament to buy, I took that as an opportunity to say, oh, that's really interesting. I guess I have been a champion of businesses. How can we incorporate something like this into the marketing over and over and over again? Because it is like discount double check where you're like, well, that person has a belt. That must mean they're like important. And I remember Neal telling me on his drive home last week when we were chatting, he was like, it really does catch the eye. Because, the trophy is great, but the belt, the title, I think it means like, oh, this person's special. So that's cool. So who were the 5 that your wife thought were going to win that weren't you?
It's like your favorite kid. You can't pick favorites. It's
okay. This are you going to be a politician at some point? Because these are clearly like answers that are rehearsed. Like, this is ridiculous. Come on, man. Give it a little bit of skill. Who did you think was going to win? Go.
One thing that was interesting though is that there was you came in. There was some local companies that had some local hometown support, and some companies had 40, 50 plus people there supporting them in the audience. So the crowd out, the ovation after they were done pitching, it was there was a lot of support for them.
Yeah, it's I'm just proud to build a company in Virginia. we started 5 years ago, and just seeing this ecosystem, for us, and we'll talk a little more in a little bit about. It was a dad creating a solution based off of a personal need, and we had such great support from folks like Stevo Biohub here locally, and then later Virginia Venture Partners, Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, and many others across the state of Virginia. And just seeing folks like a Lighthouse Lab 757 coming together to serve the startup community. I think it's rare that you can build a business anywhere in the world and have that kind of support, beyond the typical markets like a Silicon Valley or Boston if you're in life sciences, or New York. And for me, it was just a moment that I was very proud to be a part of, a moment that businesses and startups and entrepreneurs are being celebrated, because it's a very hard journey building a company and solving a problem that improves the human experience. And I just thought that you guys did such a brilliant job making this moment fun as well. There were so many surprise and delight moments. The week before, 2 weeks ago, I was in Chicago presenting at a children's hospital, and I saw that Savannah Bananas were in town. And I got an opportunity to meet Jesse Colwise there, the founder of Savannah Bananas. And you know, that whole experience was a surprise and delight moment. And that's why there's such a movement around the Banana Ball franchise. And there's a lot of pitch events that you could go to, and you might have 100, 200 people in, but it was the fun that you all created in that environment, from the mocktail drinking competition to the marching band coming up. There was a lot that was stimulating to the senses. And that's just going to create a movement around this and what you're doing. I think it's going to continue doubling in size for years to come.
When you talk about just a business owner, an entrepreneur, someone trying to make change, I think oftentimes organizations that are trying to help support them can tumble and think too selfishly about themselves. And to me, like, the business owner doesn't care about that, right? It's like, how can I get as much as I need, right? Give me a resource, give me money, give whatever. And so as I was learning about you, I was able to unpack that, like, oh, like, even though like you might be based in Charlottesville, you have a lot of ties to a lot of things in the state of Virginia, which I thought was really cool, because you got the Lighthouse Networks stuff. You got 757 Angels invested, I believe.
Yep.
Cock Island Investments, which is based here as well, and several other organizations as well that I can't think of at the top of my head. So please accept my dearest apologies. But it's cool to see that, like, hey, like, this really, like, yeah, your office might be, in whatever the zip code is there, but it really is a statewide thing, and it makes a huge global impact when we hear actually what Luminoah is and why you create it. And so I think that, like, I just think it's really rad to be like, okay, like, this guy, like, and by the way, everyone is like, Neal Piper is like the nicest guy in the world. And you talk to him and you're like, yeah, he's so kind and everything. And my wife was like, oh, he seems so great. And I said this to Neal last week, and I said it to my wife too. I said, if he is not that kind and he is actually a prick, he is the greatest showman I've ever met my entire life. Because this man, like, he just seems so genuine, kind. He's like so caring. He like goes out of his way to say really nice things. And it's just like, thank you. So I hope you are that genuine person. If you're not, we've all been fooled. And I quit. Like, I'm over it then.
Yeah,
it's not because it's true.
But it's great, though. I mean, in the sense of, like, I feel like you put your heart and your soul into what is into your business, as do all the other founders, and that's where Zach and I, as we're planning this out, we want to do the same for you all, knowing that if we can create a big platform for you to share your story and to share your message, that is what we need to do, so that, because you just don't know who's in that audience, and from an investment standpoint, a funding standpoint, but to potential customers and those who are in need. I mean, it's like, that's our responsibility, is to build that audience as big as we possibly can.
I remember having several conversations with some of the companies too that weren't the finalist 10, but they were part of the other in betweens. And I was like, look, I know historically you're going to get on stage and you're just going to talk your business. But if we can spice this up, I promise you'll be more remembered. And that's kind of why we looked at it that way. Savannah Bananas was definitely kind of an inspiration in that aspect where it's like, you will remember this piece. Because I like the whole crunchy drink off was based on the hot dog eating contest on July 4th. It's like, okay, like people eat hot dogs. We have this company that's making sparkling water in the region. Why don't we do that? You know, the chair one thing was in the middle, literally dead middle of the show, get people pumped back up. The video is great. I've seen Gary Warren talk about that too. I don't know if you've seen his quote yet, Tim.
Was Gary dancing?
I haven't seen the video of Gary dancing, but apparently he looks over and he sees his family dancing. He's like, all right, I guess I gotta get into it. And he realizes he's also not a great dancer, a fool.
And
Gary's coming to the office next week. We might have to do one of those dance offs while he's here.
Exactly.
That's really that. Yeah, that's great. And Gary will be able to share a lot of insights in terms of what to expect when you represent Virginia in San Francisco. I guess October, almost next month.
Yeah, he's going to share some lessons learned there. I'm going to bring the whole family. So our twins are going. There's actually a dance competition too, I think, that they might apply for, which would be a lot of fun. So we might have a few of our team members on the West Coast join us as well. We're really looking forward to it.
Oh, wow. How big is your team?
We've got right about 8 FTEs and probably about 20 contractors that work with us.
Wow.
We've got two people in San Diego.
Very cool. Good old San Diego.
Yeah, it's a rough place to have to visit. 70 degrees year round.
Right.
It's tough.
So how old is Noah?
He's 9 now. He's in 4th grade. And when he was sick, he was 3 years old. That's when we got the news that he had a rare brain tumor. He was, just a normal 3-year-old running around, and he started choking on his food, his saliva. We did a swallow study at UVA Children's, and then it did an MRI, and I never forget that day where the doctor came in and said, we found a tumor in the base of his skull, and our whole world was turned upside down in that moment, and we were now a cancer family. Today he's 9, healthy and strong, and 4th grade, and taught us that every single day is a gift. Try not to take a day for granted, even hard days. Right? We all have hard days, and especially the entrepreneurs that are listening in. It's a hard journey. That 2-year journey taught us that. One to try to stay positive through all this as much as possible, and not to take a day for granted.
What was your employment status prior to starting?
So, I was the CEO of the Presidential Precinct at the time, which is a startup, a nonprofit startup that started in 2013, and the mission of that organization was to bring leaders from around the world to solve some of the biggest problems in different countries. So we brought together University of Virginia, College of William and Mary, the homes of Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, to create an entity for leaders to learn and share ideas with each other. We brought in about 2,000 leaders from 160 countries over that period, and folks even like Prince Charles to the president of Nigeria to the president of St. Vincent and Grenadines. But most importantly, were the young leaders who were solving real world problems in local government and civil society organizations and entrepreneurial organizations. But I was leading that at the time. I was very fortunate that the board and the chair of the board were just super supportive of what we were going through, and just an incredible team that took over leadership there. And I remained the leader of that organization for several years. And then, once Luminoah started, growing a larger need, took over, full time as CEO, as we got some traction.
I can't even imagine the conversations that would take place between you and your wife in terms of like, your world is rocked. You're leaving your employment status and you're going to solve a problem that, how in the world do you even address solving the problem? Walk us through that.
Yeah. First, I got like a highly supportive, amazing wife and family, and that just solves all of those problems. And so that, I started off with a good foundation, and then I remember, we were in the hospital for a couple weeks. Noah was in a medically induced coma. I remember each day in the pediatric ICU at UVA Children's, probably about 30 people each morning telling us how we're going to keep our son alive. And those were very hard days. I remember looking out, the window and seeing a hot air balloon, and our house faces east, and our kids used to be early risers and always say sunny days ahead. And that was our mantra to get through those early days. And then when he was discharged, he was sent home with an enteral nutrition pump, which, Noah had some nerve damage in his vocal cords, so he couldn't eat and drink normally by mouth. So he had to have a pump connected directly to his stomach. That's, decades old, technology. It was really made for the hospital, ends up in the home. And, you know, before going to the hospital, he was a normal active kid. Coming out, now he's getting IV infusions at the hospital with chemo all day, and at home, he's tethered to a IV pole with a gravity-fed pump that has a head height, and, attached to that for the remainder of the day and all night. And so he became had a sedentary lifestyle. His whole world was completely turned upside down, and all he wanted to do is run around and just play with his twin sister, but he couldn't. Um, and I just couldn't quit thinking about this problem. And this is where I think each chapter of life prepares you for the next chapter. Not always, but in my situation, it did. You know, I'm going to rewind a little bit, and what gave us confidence to lean forward into solving this problem. In 2003, right out of school, I joined Pfizer. I was a sales rep in their neuroscience division. And I had this vision. I wanted to be the CEO of Pfizer. It's very unrealistic, but I had a 30-year plan to do so. And before I left, I was a president of a group of, this Global Health Fellows alumni network of about 400 Pfizer leaders. And in that arc and journey, I had an opportunity to move to Southern Africa for 6 months to work on a HIV project, child and maternal health project, and came back to lead this group and help run pricing and new product launches in some emerging markets. And then I moved on into a healthcare NGO, Population Service International, that's the largest in the world, and worked in 18 countries. Go on these 3-week assignments to places like Somalia, Nigeria, and Nepal, and Cambodia, and all over the world, and learn about the problems associated with the healthcare system, and logistical issues, distribution, pricing issues, marketing, clinical sales type marketing problems to help with basic healthcare infrastructure, issues related to HIV, child maternal health, malaria, fever management. And I did that for about 2 years. And, I worked in very under-resourced environments. And, we made a really significant impact in these locations. And, at the same time, I saw a lot of government corruption in these locations, typically with the Minister of Health. That then led me to go, help start the presidential precinct, to help bring leaders together, because I realized you can invest a lot of money in healthcare in different parts of the world, but if you have poor leadership, you really can't make the impact that you need to make. And that's why we felt bringing leaders to what we call the birthplace of modern democracy, to learn from each other and give them tools to go back and solve problems, would help solve some of those issues. And so now let's bring us back to 2019. Noah's at home, he's tethered to this old technology, and while he's getting chemo at the hospital, he's sedated with Benadryl, and I'm reading clinical data on enteral nutrition. I'm reading clinical data on his disease state. And it was my time at Pfizer, they put $150,000 in me right out of school to, I remember coming home with like literally a stack of books to my waist with biology, anatomy, physiology, the like neuroscience, all of these disease states, the things that I had to learn was very difficult. But it taught me how to learn a disease state really quickly, how to talk to providers, how to get inputs on problems and get up to speed really quick. And so that's how I spent my time. I couldn't control what would happen to Noah and his outcome, but what gave me peace is to be able to understand, his disease state, understand the therapy he was given on enteral. And as I went down that journey, I couldn't quit thinking about the problems associated with the current standard of care for enteral therapy, which is you come home, you're prescribed enteral therapy, and there's 300 disease states that could require it, 200 formulas, and whatever's on formulary is what you get in the home, like whatever pump, is on formulary and whatever formula. Noah came home with a very sugary formula, and he's on chemo with a steroid. He was very hyperactive as a result. We had no idea that this was you're just trying to survive at that point. Everything's a fog. And then he's tethered to this old pump, and I'm like, why can't we just build a pump and put it in his pocket? Why can't we do what the diabetes care space has done with Tandem and Dexcom, and modernize a technology that is as easy to use as an iPhone, that fits in your pocket and lets you move around, and that, you know, mom and I can actually see how much has been delivered because we're handwriting logs. And when he last got a feed, grandma and grandpa were doing the same thing. We were really stressed about making sure he's not becoming malnourished, because a malnourished kid who is also immunocompromised is a very deadly combination. You have a 5x increased mortality in that situation. And so we were wanted to be making sure we're given 100% of therapy every day, but there was no data tracking system. We're like, why is that not the case? And so while walking around UVA Children's, I mean, nothing will rip out your heart more than seeing little kids walking around going through the hardest journey of their life. And we saw other kids struggling. We saw other families struggling. And Val and I constantly, my wife talked about, like, we don't know why this happened to us, but what we do know is that we have resources, we have skills, and we have access to capital. Let's solve this. And my entire life, from the time I was a little kid to today, like I start like fixating on a problem, and I've always been really creative and trying to solve things, and then I don't stop until it's finished. I remember when I was 12 years old, I did a lot of landscaping in my backyard, built this pond and waterfall, and I started in the morning and I had spotlights on at the afternoon and the evening. I don't want to stop until it's done. And in this situation, you know, I wanted to solve this problem, and why not? If no one else is doing it, let's get it done. And I thought it would be a lot easier. I thought we'd get it done a lot faster. Um, I think every entrepreneur thinks so. One of our good friends is an advisor, was the first CTO at Reddit and the founding engineer at Pinterest, and Marty Weiner, and he always said, whatever your timeline and budget is, just double it, and that's about where you're going to end up. I didn't believe it, and it's certainly been the case. But that's where we let off. An idea, a problem, a passion, but also a lifetime of experiences that gave me the confidence and the family support to move forward and do it at all costs to get it done.
Lots to unpack there. The one thing that like to me is just interesting is like as technology improves, gets easier, it's cheaper. I think people like how can like the Instagramification of the like immediacy, how can we get that about the data in our bodies basically, or the things that we're doing, right? I remember back in the day, and Tim, I might have even told you this, but like when I had Hatch, the actual physical location, I used to tell people like, I wish there was like a monitor to know like how close I am to dying. And I know that's a ridiculous thing to say, but it's like, am I teetering a line that you just don't know? And then like you hear this, and maybe there is this tool at this point. Maybe it is like your Aura ring at this point, Tim. I don't know. But like you have all this availability in some things. And then you have stuff like in Noah's case where there isn't anything, at least not for the home. I guess my like statement question is just like, why the hell not? Like, why? Like, and it's not just the stuff with Noah. There's millions of things that I guess will just happen at some point, but it's just wild to me that like things we can go to space, but we can't have something so we know like what's actually going in and out of the body, markers, etc. Like, I don't know, it's just wildness to me.
We're heading there. I just I was connected to someone out of Australia who's a
Good day, mate.
ultra marathon runner, and she has tube feeding, and she posted something on LinkedIn this past week that says, why is enteral nutrition stuck in the 90s? We have smart toasters, and we can control a whole house with our phone, but yet we've got
We
this
drove to
decades old.
Charlottesville
Yeah,
without touching the steering wheel.
exactly. But
You
yet we
know,
don't know what's happening inside our body. I just recently read this book called Outlive by Peter Attia. He's one of the thought leaders in longevity, and he talks a lot about medicine 2.0 and kind of where we're moving with medicine 3.0, which is currently in the health system. Chronic illness is within us for decades before there's an acute need to keep that patient alive, whether it's heart disease or diabetes, and we need to move into preventative care. Obviously, exercise is critical in that, and food is medicine, right? Versus solving everything with medicine and expensive treatments. And we are slowly moving that direction. It's going to take a lot of policy changes. It's also going to change with payers of what they pay for. But we are certainly moving in that direction. It's also slower because there's a bigger regulatory body. Obviously with the Food and Drug Administration, which is instrumental to making sure that we have safe and effective treatments through robust clinical data. But it also slows down progress. If you think about cars, they haven't really evolved that much until the past 10 years, but there's also a regulatory body there that makes that slower to move. But medicine 3.0 is coming. I do think that we're moving into a stage where we will know a lot more about our health. We'll have more predictive analytics about our health and trends. And I think that's going to be really critical, because then that empowers you as an individual to make changes, versus waiting to go into your healthcare provider. And we're going to be a part of that, right? This will be the first time in human history someone has real-time nutritional data of what's going into the body, both from macro micronutrients, and then calories and hydration, and then output of that. So we're pushing that forward for human health for people with chronic illness.
that's what I thought was cool about NGZ from the suicide awareness aspect. It's like forever the marketing has been, if you have a problem, call this number.
Right.
But then it's like, hey, actually, we have all these markers, we have all these data points, and now we're going to notify you that we think something's up. And what I just heard you say is really close to that aspect of it. And so just a quick side note, but like I thought that aspect was really, really unique when we've learned more about Mike, who also was on stage last week. But it will be interesting to see how like that trigger from someone who is like, okay, this post is live. I might go watch it. I might go do it. If it says something about your body, will you do something too? Or like, where is that next step? So
Where do things stand right now, Neal, in terms of with the product roadmap? Are customers or patients, are they able to put that device in their pocket and not be sedentary like Noah was? Where are we at in the roadmap?
Yeah, so as part of our pathway, we have human factors, so it's all simulated use, and so we've had our pump on users in a simulated way across many people, and that's part of our FDA submission. We're targeting clearance in the early part of next year, and then we would have an early access program for customers. We have everything's been very organic. You cannot pre-sell until you get FDA clearance, but you can get voice of customer feedback, and some of the leading hospitals across the country and leading home medical equipment companies have come to us and said, when you're cleared, we want to be your first customers. And there's real enthusiasm. I mean, there's you know we believe there's going to be a lot of families like ours that are talking about the technology. You could imagine, if it's been really 20 years since you've seen any real innovation on a delivery device,
Hmm.
that now you have a technology that can enable someone just to live freely and not know that you're getting a feed, and have access to your own data, be empowered with that. And not, when you go into someone's home, it doesn't look like you're going into a hospital because you've got an IV bag and pole and pump sitting there, that now you can just live your life and be the incredible person that you are, be a kid running around on the playground versus being homeschooled, or a aging mother. It's just able to go out in the garden or be with friends versus being fed by the bedside. Um, like we believe there's going to be a lot of momentum right out of the gates, and we're experiencing that already. I've been traveling the country over the past year, meeting with a lot of people, and like, people are really shocked by what we've developed.
Well, you put on a master class just in the first 40 minutes, 37 minutes that we've been talking, just in terms of like the cliche of you bet on the jockey, not the horse. And for you to like experience what you've experienced, make the decision that you are going to solve this problem, and then to just have the tenacity to continue to go through this journey, to see it through and through the whole FDA process. I mean, this has been a marathon, and you've got to be totally dedicated to this to see this through. So, I mean, you really have put on a master class in terms of, as a founder, to see this through. So, congratulations to you.
Thanks. Well, it takes a village, and I think the entrepreneur often gets a lot of credit, right, as the founder, because we get to talk on shows like this, and we're the voice that people hear. But there are so many people that are around this, and my job's to help lead us, make sure that we're raising capital, make sure that I'm listening and to everyone in our community, so that we're building something that truly makes a difference. We're not building this to go and, I mean, if you're successful, the company will sustain and be very financially successful. We're building this to make the biggest impact on human lives that we possibly can, and so our job's to obsess about that, and to get in front of people, and to guide the team. And then, as a founder, often people will say, well, the journey's hard, and it's difficult. Like, I see it as kind of two things. Working a lot in sub-Saharan Africa and different areas where infrastructure is lower. Like, a lot of these roads are really bumpy. There's potholes. You hit your head at times, but it's also really awesome because you're on this adventure of something you never experienced. So that's part of the journey. And also, once I climbed a big sand dune in Namibia. And as you climb a sand dune, you ultimately make it to the top, as long as you got enough water and, you survive the journey. But every step you slide down a little bit. So as you walk up, you slide down. I think those two analogies are really good for the journey of entrepreneurship. Assume you're going to bump the head, not in a good way. Assume that it's going to be a great adventure, and it's going to be the most rewarding thing that you're going to do. Um, and then just keep your head really level through all that. Keep really good people around you. Surround yourself with other founders to talk to these things with, and don't celebrate the highs too much. Don't crawl up into a ball when you hit the lows, and just know that it's part of the journey. But also, like, making sure you have really, really, really good investors. We were so lucky to have just an incredible family office, who are dear to us, that have supported us from day one. An incredible venture capital firm that supported us from day one, and individual angels who just believed in us, and ultimately, the bigger group that has come around this organization. And even when we have a setback, they're there for us, and that is really, really critical from the early days. And also, making sure you have the best and brightest people working for you that are aligned with the mission. Like, if someone comes to work for Luminoah and it's just all about how much money you're going to make and equity, all that stuff has to be there and competitive, which we are. But you have to be into it for the mission and for making a difference in the lives of our users. Because if you're not going to sustain the energy. And we want people that are solving problems, that are here because they want to make a difference. And our team is absolutely incredible. Many of them are here at literally 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, and then they leave after 5 p.m. It's not because of the culture we created to do that and say you have to be here then. It's because, like, we love what we do every single day. And so, yeah, because I'm on the show and people hear my story, and, like, we're the fire behind this and the moving, but it really takes a full team of dedicated people, from your investors to your contractors to your team, and people are adding value every single day. We always say that if you spend $1, it has to add $1 to $10 in value. And if you're not, you shouldn't be a part of it, because we're venture backed. We got to raise the valuation of the company. We've got to move forward, hit milestones within a timeline. And if not, look each other in the face and say, why? What did we learn? And let's not do that again. And so, creating this culture, creating an incredible movement of people around the entity, is ultimately the job of the CEO. But it really takes a village. You guys are a part of that now, and amplifying this message for entrepreneurs and for organizations like us.
What's Noah's sister's name?
Safi, we call her.
Safi.
Yeah.
He's twins? Is that what you said?
Yeah. He's a minute older, as he reminds her quite a bit.
Okay. So, do you have other kids?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay,
Twins was like, twins are a lot, they're really awesome. And,
yeah,
but two at once, that was enough to say, all right, we're done here. But we love it. It's the best journey of our life. I mean, it's amazing.
Do either of them grasp what Noah went through before and what you are doing now? Are they, fourth grade, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
Can they really grasp anything like that at this point? Or like, what is their appetite to all of this?
Yeah. The coolest part of this whole thing is that they're, like, fully embedded. So we've got, a Lego board out in, our main area. And, it's a pretty big Lego board. It says Luminoah. They help build and design that and put it up. Luminoah, the name, came from, when you ring the bell at UVA Children's Hospital, there's a painting of a rocket ship. And, our family talked a lot about space. Noah loves space. And, when creating the name, we merged illumination, the measure of light between stars, and Noah's name, Luminoah, to create a brighter future for people that need tube feeding. And so his name is literally embedded into the DNA. Safi says one of the products needs to be named after her at some point. We're still
I was
figuring that
going
out.
to ask that question. There might be a little
We got to figure that out. She's designing out different fanny packs and stuff for the company. She loves fashion. And one neat story from this summer, we were in Charleston for the Oli conference, which is a 28,000 member group of users that are tube fed. They have an annual conference. We spoke at the conference this year about our story, and they have a kids camp, kids with feeding tubes. A couple years ago, we were there and brought in the author of the Super Tubie book, which is an incredible book for kids. The film Powered with their as a Super Tubie. This year, our kids went in the camp, help support the kids in the camp, and got the see our presentation about the company during the conference. Organizations were involved with the Children's Hospital here, and Make-A-Wish Foundation, Ronald McDonald House, and so we try to create opportunities for them to engage in this and help some, but we only do it because they want it, right? Because we don't want Noah's identity to be, I was a kid that had cancer and fought it. We want it to be the identity he wants, but he really, and Safi and Noah truly enjoy being a part of this community, and they're a big part of our story. And hopefully that will continue to be the case as we grow and scale and get this technology on kids and families and adults that will experience the impact of that story.
Where's pushback in anything like this? Like, what do people push back at anything that you're doing?
So, I mean, the big thing is you're going into an environment that is price, right? So that's the biggest. I mean, the technology, it's literally a no-brainer that um, this should be the new standard of care as we prove that out with the evidence. It all the components are there for that, and it's you're going into a market where there's some price constraints. There hasn't been a lot of increases and the reimbursement, and so that's the headwind to overcome, and we've got a good strategy to overcome that headwind. But that's the biggest pushback.
What's been the biggest surprise that you have faced along your journey? I mean, like, just assuming you're the founder, you're the CEO, you've had quite the journey so far. What's been the biggest surprise that you've faced?
I think the biggest surprise is there's a lot of surprises. It's hard to narrow down just one. There's a new challenge every week that you're solving. I think the amount of time it takes to fundraise was a surprise in terms of a lot of my career has been commercializing products in healthcare, and doing that you've got segmentation of lists, persistency, refining a message, overcoming problems and objections, and you have to build out certain things to move a product forward. But it's we started the company March of 2020 when COVID hit, and IPOs had an all-time high at that point, which drives valuations. M&As were at an all-time high, and that unlocks venture capital. And then 2021, 2022 hit when we're raising capital, and you know, capital starts tightening up. And so, it was a learning experience for me in terms of the capital raising process. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of investors over the past 5 years, and we finally have got our, everything in a really good place there, right? We've raised, quite a bit of capital to date. And but I think that there's a lot of full-time jobs that you need to wear as a founder and CEO of a company. In the early days, we talk a lot about the 5 Ps that you're trying to solve with minimum capital, which is what you're having clear understanding of your problem and the product, your solution, patenting that technology. What's the pathway to get that to market? Is there a regulatory body to get through? What's your plan in terms of commercialization strategy, and who are your people? There's early stages of advisors, and they move to consultants and the employees, and in early days, you want to spend the minimum capital to pressure test that, so you're set up for the next capital raise, and then you find a milestone, you dive deeper. Some of those people come in the FDEs. You spend a lot more money on IP and so forth, and so you continually invest heavier in those areas, and each one of those areas has its own set of problems and unique solutions. And you can listen to a lot of podcasts and get a lot of feedback from a lot of different founders, and you take all that into consideration, but there's a lot of uniqueness to every situation and scenario, and ultimately you got to use your own gut in that process to discern what really is going to have the greatest impact on the trajectory of your organization.
I'm curious, what and you can feel free to be critical. As you mentioned, you've traveled around the U.S. You've seen a lot of different startup ecosystems. You've done a lot of different events. What's your take on Virginia's startup ecosystem? What are we doing well? What needs to be improved upon? I'm curious, what your thoughts are there.
Yeah. So I've traveled to 70 plus countries on all 7 continents at this point. My last is Antarctica. That's a story for a different day. And I've seen healthcare, I've seen entrepreneurial ecosystems. Yeah, I don't fully understand all the different legal and policy things and nuances around that. Um, I've got a good friend of mine who runs one of the biggest angel funds in sub-Saharan Africa. Um, and um, and what I can say is that I believe that there's no better country to build a startup than the United States, just because you know you can literally be in your nightgown and at home and start an LLC, convert it to C corp later as you're raising capital in Delaware or wherever, and get a tax ID and get off the ground running. I mean, we could take that for granted. I mean, my wife's from Bolivia, and it, certain countries it's just super difficult just to get that in place. And then raising capital, it's easy for us to complain here of how hard that is, and that's not to be minimalized. It is. It's just part of the journey. But it's almost impossible in another country to raise capital. In not all countries, but in a lot of countries. And so the fact that we have access to opportunity and capital here is really incredible. I would say before COVID, if we're in Silicon Valley, potentially Austin at that time, New York, Boston, if you're in life sciences, it'd be very difficult to create a startup. You would need to go in person for investor meetings. Post COVID now with virtual meetings, there's good and bad to that. The good is you have access and you can build a company from anywhere. The bad is I'd much rather go in person and meet a group of VCs in person, but oftentimes they're fragmented, right? People are all dialing in remote, and you're taking 8 or 10 calls a day, and the follow-up process, that cycle is slower. Versus if you actually all just got in the same room together for a day, you could come up with a deal and move that forward a lot quicker. So I think there's pros and cons to where we're heading. Now let's focus on Virginia. So I think Virginia is doing a lot of really good things to create a really good entrepreneurial ecosystem. You have 757, obviously being one of those. I think Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation with their CCF grant, their venture fund is really good. Some of these Startup Virginia grants where you've got innovation hubs. I'm more familiar with the Charlottesville one with things like Seville BioHub for the life sciences, and CBIC and others. So I think there's these hubs. I think Virginia is really good at getting startups off the ground. There's accelerators, incubators, all the things. And then I think it's a really good place to raise an angel or like an early stage capital. Once you get to Series A, though, we've got some work to do. If you want to raise, $5+ million round, much less getting into the $20 to $30 million rounds. You've got to go beyond Virginia. And I think one of the things we need to work on as the Commonwealth is how do we attract some of these larger funds to Virginia, you know, part of that's going to be some large exits, whether it's IPOs or M&As, creating a lot of attention from the VCs to be attracted here. I think some of these entrepreneurial hubs are trying their best to attract these folks to come. It's difficult. And I think we've got an opportunity from the state of Virginia on the government side to help support this. But what you don't want is to have a ton of startups that have all this potential, but then they can't raise their next round. And so I think that's where we have an opportunity to improve. But I think from an entrepreneurial standpoint, like from my perspective, I feel really grateful to be in the Commonwealth and in Charlottesville. And our plan is that our headquarters stays here. We grow, we scale the organization here in Virginia.
Well, I promised that I did not know that you were going to say that. And like, that is the drum that I beat from an Innovate Hampton Roads standpoint, is the storytelling aspect, because it is so difficult for founders from the Series A level and beyond to get those larger sums of money. I appreciate your insight on that.
I think that goes back to like my comment earlier, where it's like the entrepreneur just wants to succeed, wants to see their business make it, right? And so if there are organizations, like, don't be so siloed and afraid to bring others in, right? Tim talked about the investor who then went to Philadelphia. One of our judges was from the Raleigh area who writes checks. It's like, we wanted to make sure, like, who cares if they're not in Virginia from that perspective? If they can get a check in from a VC firm in Raleigh, and that's going to keep them here, then we should be cool with that. Like, figuring out ways to partner in that kind of way, I think, is incredibly important. To your point, Neal, and it's like, you want to get those bigger checks. Where do you get them? I mean, Ivy Watch raised a lot of money too. I wonder where some of their funders are from, right? It's like, it's a cycle, right? And you need to have these options available so that people don't move and go somewhere else. Because ultimately, if they don't have that opportunity and they need that cash, that might be what they have to do.
I think what you and Tim are doing also contributes to that, right? You think about the exposure of Startup World Cup Virginia. I mean, all 10 of us were winners. We just happened, maybe we got the short straw or the long straw. I don't know how the judges selected and got the cup, right? But everyone up there deserved to win. Everyone up there got a lot of exposure, and that's how you get exposure beyond the state of Virginia. There's a lot of people watching. There must be 1,000 plus likes and comments on different things that were shared from you all, and a lot of those are investors from some of the leading venture capital firms across the United States, and so people are watching. You guys are helping accelerate that.
Well, Zach and I, we look forward to road tripping out to Charlottesville to just see you sometime soon.
I love that. Bring that belt with you as well. That way I can show what we really won here is the championship belt. Let people hold the belt in a physical form. And
here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna charge $50 a picture. They can $50 for you with the they get to sit with you in a picture. Give all the money to Luminoah. We gotta figure out how to make that happen.
And you can drink,
take a drink from the cup,
from the cup.
We'll get as much crunchy as necessary. By the way, when I put those 2 racks of like crunchies on that table, I'd only had one, and then like I think they drank all but the one that I just drank. Like,
they put them down.
5 in a minute? Goodness gracious! Great balls of fire! How does that even happen?
Did you see the one person shotgunning the crunchies?
Yeah,
that was the guy who was really slow.
Yeah, I thought he was.
Some of the pictures are great.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, we normally end the show by talking about what is the food of the 757. But when Zach and I make our way to Charlottesville, what is the one restaurant or what is the one dish that we need to partake in?
Oh, that's a good question. When you come here, we literally are manufacturing facilities right across from Bodo's Bagels, and that's there's literally people that will wait first thing in the morning so they can get the first check, the zero. It's like a claim to fame here, but they're like New York style bagels. So we'll have to get one of those. But there's I mean, I think there's more restaurants per capita than New York here. I heard someone say that. You'll have to fact check that. You've got 50 plus vineyards and breweries and distilleries, and surrounded by the Blue Ridge Mountains here, and it's a beautiful place. So you guys come here, do a really fun day together. So looking forward to hosting you all.
I look forward to it.
Anything you want to talk about that we haven't talked about? Usually what I say before that, but we flipped it.
I would just say for the entrepreneurs that are listening in, and we're all at different stages of a journey. Many of you are much further along than the companies that pitch. Some that are thinking about an idea, or are in those early stages. And I just say that if it's something that you truly believe in, and that that you've got something that's going to change lives, or change the way that people live, just lean in and do it. It's just make it happen. Put people around you that you can brainstorm with, and fill in the gaps where you have gaps, and lean in and just fight till you get it done. And let's I'm just excited to hopefully make Virginia proud. I'm be carrying all 830 something people that were in the audience in spirit with me in San Francisco next month. And I don't know how you top Gary. He's incredible. Got number 3 last year. But we're gonna do everything that we can to try to get number 1 this year. And I'll say that if we don't, it's not without giving 100% effort. And we're going to be doing this for everyone in the Commonwealth, all the entrepreneurs here. So keep up the good fight.
I believe the reason he lost last year is because he did not bring Ivy up on stage with him. When he was at our event, he did his entire pitch with Ivy in him missed. Just saying, Gary, maybe you should have done that. That would have been the thing that took it over.
Maybe you should have pitched with the belt. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, Gary. Neal,
you want the $1 million check or the belt? I think the belt. I don't know. I mean, I think the belt's got significant value.
Buy a lot of belts.
Buy a lot of belts.
$1 million. So, all right, Neal. Appreciate your time. It's been great.
Congratulations. You're a true class act. I look forward to seeing you soon.